Hey, I'm Lisa Singer, and this is Brand Insider BTS, where I get to pull back the curtain on some of the most influential women marketers today. And with me is Kirstin Falk. She is the Senior Advisor, Brand Strategy and Partnerships at Breakwater Studios. Hey,
Hi.
Kirstin, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, Lisa.
Hey, well, I am so happy to have you here. I mean, a lot of times I always do my snooping and research and just one thing after the other, it's funny, in some ways I related so much to you just because my background was, television and news and entertainment news and that kind of thing. But then obviously, which we'll hear more about, you went off in a different direction, which I love and I definitely want to hear more about. I want to steal from it too.
Oh,
Your
well,
life is
thank
so
you.
much more exciting.
Thank you. Well, it's always nice to hear that when someone looks in your life. So it's great. Thank you.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, first of all, I mean, Breakwater, I know you were in combination with or in collaboration with McCann and also
Yep.
with that was for L'Oreal Paris. And also I believe there was another Traverse 32.
Traverse 32. Yep. Great partners of ours as well.
Yes, so I want to give everyone credit where it's due.
Yes.
So the three
Yep.
of you got a huge award earlier. Congratulations for the film you did, short film, and it's the final copy of Elan Spect. And you guys were awarded the Grand Prix at
Yeah.
Cannes this year. I mean, congratulations, first of all. I mean, how
Thank you.
did that feel? That must have been so exciting for you.
Absolutely. And, all of us who sort of work on creative projects, it's funny because sometimes you just get that feeling the minute you start working on something.
Mhm.
And that was absolutely this project. There were so many things that came together. First off, just the team working with incredible partners like McCann and Traverse 32, and then just her and just listening to her story, which is so powerful for all of us women and inspired so many people. And so it truly was a bucket list moment to be on that stage and get to win an award like that. I will have to say, as a marketer, that is something you aspire towards in life.
Well, and also I just think because I mean her story is out there, but it's even, what I loved about when I would be reporting on a set visit or red carpet or whatever, and we would have this 20 other more than 20 other people doing the same thing I was, and we all came back with our different story. You know,
Right.
had the
Yep.
same thing, same elements, but we made it our own version. So, and I think that's what's so cool about what you guys are doing. This is a story that's been around. You obviously it caught something that made it where you guys wanted to tell the story, but then going back to the way you did it, how much of her life impacted that, or in terms of the creative on your side. I know you were one of the executive producers.
Yep. I think the story shows one of my favorite terms, which is the idea of creative bravery on every level. And so we, as a creative team at Breakwater, were given full trust and support by McCann and Traverse 32 to go do what we do best.
Mhm.
And Ben, who obviously is an Academy Award winner
Right.
multiple times,
Yeah.
was able to go and create the film that he wanted to create. And really, it was a collaborative process with her. As you can see in the film, she's allowed to be who she is. And I think that's really the most important thing that we always are searching for is sort of her authentic voice came through. That wasn't, we didn't, there was no filter, there was no trying to edit that. It was really allowing her to be who she was. And I think that is what is such a powerful statement in the film.
Yep, and that's what obviously rang true to, win such an award at Cannes. So
Absolutely.
that's amazing. Well, I mean, you talk about being the power to be brave. Now that
Yeah.
certainly describes Alon. And she started back, when she started as a copywriter in advertising, what, early
Yeah.
70s, maybe even
Yeah.
earlier, but we're talking about around then. She, it was a very male dominated industry. And
Yeah.
she needed to make her place. And she also had with her that cause of advancing women. Even back
Yes.
then, that was something that was important to her. And she coined I think everyone, even today's generation, knows because I'm worth it. And
Yes.
that's the slogan for L'Oreal. And it's something that people have parodied, they've brought with them. I even think they did a rehash of it recently.
Yep.
So it's just one of those taglines that everyone knows, and it's not only just about the ad itself, but it has a statement to make, and it's about women. And so talk about that, because when you do talk about what Alon basically forged for so many women like yourself to be able to get to levels like you have achieved,
Yeah.
amazing to do that. But still along the way, and even still today, it can be difficult for women. It can be something you need to maneuver through. So I want to turn that on you. So I'm not asking you for an Elan moment, but something, is there a time in your career where you sort of faced that challenge that you had to get through as a woman and just really just either, keep your head down and go, or, be, this is me, I'm here. Like, talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I love this question, and I could spend hours on this. I think that I have been incredibly fortunate in my career, going all the way back to my childhood, to have parents and strong female women in my life who have supported me from day one. And so I think that is part of what was so amazing about her and the relationship that she had with Allison,
Yeah.
was that mentorship and bringing her along. And I had mentors like that throughout my career who inspired me as very bold, provocative women who made it okay to speak your mind and to act and be whatever you're going to be. So that theme has run throughout my career. And I've pursued a lot of different things because I have been so supported. And it's also what inspires me in terms of how I operate. My goal in life is to leave as many leaders as I can behind me. And I try and lift up as many women. And I think it's important to remember that. When I first started out in my career, I actually worked in politics in DC, and there wasn't sort of that same, for lack of a better term, sisterhood of sort of helping women. And it's changed a lot. And I think we all recognize how important it is to help each other. But sexism is still pretty strong today, which is why I think the tagline still resonates and is just as relevant today as it was, many, many years ago. I mean, we don't need to get too political, but you can look at how a female presidential candidate is treated versus a male. You can look at how many women get venture funding in Silicon Valley versus men. You can look at, there was just a recent female quotient article about women are evaluated early in their career based on performance versus men on potential,
Yes.
right? And so there's still a lot of themes that I think, and things happening in our society that really make this term still relevant. And so I feel fortunate that I had sort of that support and community around me at every step of the way to help me and support me. But not everyone has that.
Yeah. So do you feel as if, so you maybe hit these barriers or these
Yeah.
challenges, but because then you could turn to, Mary,
Yeah.
whoever your mentor is, and say, look, this is what's happening, and she could help guide you. And it also,
Absolutely.
I want to ask again, early on, and
Yeah.
as things have changed, but early on, sometimes we are told, just get to the next level. Like, it's
Oh,
too soon. Were you ever told that, or was it always, no, you show them that you have a voice, you deserve to be heard?
oh no, listen, I've, as you know, with my resume, I've worked with large companies, I've worked with small companies, I've been in a lot of different industries. The reality is, there's a lot to be said for playing it safe and playing the game and doing as you're told. There's certain mechanisms that really support women doing that. So breaking out of that mold and being different and saying what might not be politically wanted at that moment is not always the easiest path. And so that's why I was fortunate, because I've certainly hit things and hit walls and been told to give up on ideas, or my ideas were too crazy, or that that's not how the company did things. All of those things I've hit, but I'm just somebody who doesn't give up. I played sports, I'm competitive, and then I also have a community of people around me who believe in me. So I have somebody to go to and say, what do you think? And they say, go for it. But without a doubt, I would say it is easier to almost just sort of swim in the lane.
Yeah. Well, but as you said, you plowed through instead. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I think that's valid. I mean, and again, it depends the industry. I'm not saying don't listen to me and get fired tomorrow, but
Yeah.
I do think that's what makes you unique and why people want you. You know, what you bring to the table, what you want to say needs to be heard. Or if you're just plow, then you're just another cog. And I think that
Absolutely.
maybe there's a time and a place for that, but I think in general, I think be more creative about it as opposed to just being that cog, but in a way that's, you know, a little safer, but still shows who you are.
Again, that absolutely resonates with me. I totally agree with you. And I think, there was a book that really inspired me, sort of about beautiful constraints, right? In a way, actually creating better creative. And I think that's just, you have to understand one, you can't take anything personal, right? And I've done years of therapy and leadership training, and you can't take when you hear a no, or that's not the right idea, or we don't like that. To me, that was always a creative challenge. Okay, well, let me go back and talk to my team, and how do we get around that? What did we miss? Is somebody fearful of something? Are they uncertain about this? How can we shape this differently? What data do they need? There's, to me, it was always like, okay, great. I need to go back and refine this and come back.
Figure out how to do it. Well, and it
Yeah.
goes certainly with the description on when you go to Breakwater's site and your little the write up on you, very flattering, of course. I mean, but
Yeah.
one of the lines that I thought was interesting, it said, Kirstin has pursued an unconventional career path driven by a desire for learning new things and meeting different people. So obviously
Yes.
talking to you these, minute or two that we've been doing this, that's pretty apparent. And so, but I want to ask you, like when you were starting out, as you said, you started with, in politics and then you kind of went to different companies. So when you're
Hmm.
graduating, and I tend to think you had a little bit of the same as you do now, in terms of that
Yes.
drive that I'm going to go do this. But was it targeted here? Like, did you envision where you are
No.
today?
I didn't even, no, thank you. I had no clue. I had no idea that the brand marketing world, I didn't even know that existed. And yes, I definitely had that drive. I was actually an political honors student at UCSB. I was a commencement speaker for social sciences. I was very driven.
Yeah,
But I was driven by my values and a desire to make things better than how I found them, and driven by my desire to help people who might not be able to help themselves. And that's really sort of what put me in politics and what led me to DC. And in doing the work that I did, sort of the major donor fundraising with organizations in DC, at the end of the day, people asked how I was able to make sort of a leap into the marketing world. But really, you're building relationships in donor fundraising. You're communicating. You're presenting a narrative and a story. It's really not a leap. It's just a different sort of way of packaging things or thinking about it. But at the
right.
end of the day, you're still building relationship with people and creating a story with them and sharing that story and all those things. So I say unconventional because one of the things that people said to me very early on in my career was, "Oh, Kirstin, you've jumped around a lot. That doesn't look good on your resume. You should stay with the same company for 15, 20 years." And I
Yeah.
was always like, that doesn't make sense to me. I love being in new places. I've moved to different places. I've gotten to meet so many incredible people. I've had amazing teams. And to me, all of it, you have a platform about what you're good at, and each of these new experiences just gives you different insight and sort of broadens your perspective. So that's why I say unconventional.
Yeah, no, and I completely agree. I think, I mean, I'm similar path. My friends write were used to write my address in pencil, because I was constantly moving for, but I love, you kind of get to where, and you tell me if this has maybe inspired it a little bit. You get to what you want to achieve at a certain location, a certain spot that you find.
Yep.
And then it's like, what's the next challenge? Or what's the next
Yep.
thing? Or whatever it may be that then makes you want to move on. So I don't think it's not so much changing careers. It's you're doing what you love to do. It's just finding new ways to do it. And what it sometimes has to happen is going to a new spot, no new industry, new or not new industry, a new company.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And to me, it's just always been, when you start in a new place or start in a new company or move to a new place, like you have to really sort of confront some things internally and look inward because it is change, it is different. You might not have friends in that town, you might not know, all of those things. But I'm such a huge believer that growth comes from sort of uncomfortable situations and being in new places. And so, each time I've made those changes, I have felt in my career that there was tremendous growth for me as a person and individual. And now I have, people all across the country who I get to watch and see where they are going and what they've accomplished. And it's super cool. So I feel fortunate. But again, I was very supported. I had a great family, great friends, and all of those things that enabled me to do those types of things.
Yeah, no, and as you say, not everyone can do it. So I guess getting to that young woman starting out today and just getting
Yep.
started, and in terms of, I mean, you even talked about the female quotient statistics in terms of younger women tend to be judged by their achievements, whereas men are judged by their opportunity or what they think they can do, what
Yeah.
higher ups think they can do, their potential. And I mean, I was amazed at that myself when you just mentioned it too. So how do you advise that young woman coming to you today wanting to achieve your kind of success, wanting to be you?
Yeah. It's one, that's something I actually really do because I remember early on in my career, and again, I think today there's a lot more resources than there are, than there were when we started out. But I try and help anybody that comes to me that wants to have coffee, that wants to meet. And I think at the end of the day, you have to be honest and say it's not easy. This is not easy. It
Yeah,
takes, you
yeah,
have to believe in yourself, and you have to have things outside of work that are important to you, that inspire you, that you're passionate about. So your worth is not all because of what you do every day. And that, by the way, took me many years to figure that out. So I try and help everyone understand. Like that took me a long time. Yeah, that's I definitely get validation through achievement, as you can tell, and so I had to sort of unlearn that a little bit myself.
hmm,
But that's what I try and tell sort of young women, and I have, a niece, and I have girls that I've mentored along the way that, to me, they're so inspiring now because there's just so much more opportunity. And that's what I say, just go for it.
yeah,
Take advantage of all of these things, travel the world, because getting outside of the United States is one of the best things that anybody can do for their education, to understand different ways of seeing the world and the way things are happening in the world. So I think that's, like I always say to everyone, if they're like, should I take a few months off and go travel? Absolutely, because I really think that's an important thing. But also you just have to believe in yourself, and you have to work on the things that will help you do that, whatever those might be.
yeah. And not and believing in yourself, but also especially in our industry or
Yeah.
advertising, broadcast, it's not, as you said, it's not an easy industry. You really have to love it. Because
Yeah.
there are going to be those lows where
Oh yeah.
we're like, why don't you just, become a banker or, whatever. Not that it's easy to be a
Yes.
banker. I'm just saying, but something where it's a little bit more, you find a certain route. And because every time it's like, I love this, and so it's just that's what keeps you going. So when you do hit those lows, but then the highs are that much more bad, that's it's like, this is amazing.
Absolutely. And I mean, to me, like creatively solving brand, challenges, and like creating a story that inspires and resonates with people, like that is, I love it. I love it. And I love, working with people and inspiring them, and getting to do those types of things. And so, but you absolutely have to love it. Creative is still hard, right? I mean, you have to get used to a lot of no's. You have to get used to a herd mentality sometimes, where people want to, sort of err on the side of consensus, which is actually not how you create the best creative work. And so, that's why, again, I always go back to the term sort of creative bravery, which I wish I had coined that, but I read that from somebody many years ago. It's really important. You have to be able to handle someone telling you that's not a great idea. I don't like that. I and sort of believe in the idea, believe in yourself, or also acknowledge where there might be some great input from somebody, and you need to listen to that and understand it and incorporate it.
Yep, not don't have too big of an ego that you can't adjust in some ways.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, in talking about, what you just said, you love telling brand stories, you love telling stories.
Yeah.
And you in my snooping, you did write that you said that you are proud to champion storytelling. And you were actually in a post you did, this was for another accolade that you received
Yep.
for Chinatown, and that you also that won something in I'm forgetting.
So I think, yeah, it's a lot, which is just why we are so fortunate at Breakwater Studios, and I get to work with such a talented group of people. We also won a Cannes Lion for our work with LinkedIn on B2B storytelling, and that's like a perfect example, right? Which is one, the LinkedIn team was incredible to work with, and I love the platform. I've been on the platform from like day one. But many people don't realize sort of the real renaissance occurring in B2B marketing. You know, it used to be white papers and like the most for boring kind of marketing, if you ask me, very sort of linear, rational thinking. And what everybody's realizing in B2B is you're still marketing to people. You know, you
Yep.
still need to inspire them. You still need to get a chief decision maker, you know, excited about what you offer. And so that's what was so fun about the film, was to sort of flip everybody's belief about how B2B marketing worked and really show the humanity of the marketing and how important that is and successful that has been. So that's why that was a very fun project.
I
Um,
did. 'Cause I actually watched part of it. That's why I
oh,
was trying to get
great.
it in my head. And what I loved is it was basically the evolution and how, as you said, it
Yeah.
started off, much more boring. And even, when you look at it, even I know from just working with marketers when I put together events, and when I hear B2B initially, my thoughts were, well, like, and then as I started seeing what they were doing, I was completely like, wow, it is a lot more to it. And that's why it's actually crossed over so much into, just general marketing and advertising and whatnot.
Well, and it's an excellent example of status quo behavior and people just sort of doing the same marketing tactics over the years because that's what you were supposed to do, right? And it's like when I was at Charles Schwab, when I first started, the bulk of marketing and content was focused on sort of the rational, linear, you know, if we tell them this product feature, that will convert them to become a customer. But what you realize at the end of the day for most things is people make very emotional decisions
Mhm.
about their finances, about what product they're going to purchase, about what company they're going to work with. And so ultimately, at the end of the day, you need to connect with people on an emotional level and really, you know, change their heart, the heart's part of it, not just the mind part of it, to get them on board. And so that's what was super fun about the LinkedIn project for sure.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And so I have to ask, and what do people get wrong about you when they first meet you? And part of me is almost like you kind of seem to be, you, you are what you are. You know what I mean? Like this is
Yeah.
what you, that kind of,
They
I
think
feel like.
what they get wrong. They think I'm from New York. They can't believe I grew up in Northern California. That's usually what
And
people
I
get
would actually, I would say that too. You have a little bit of an edge. Not that
wrong.
Californians don't have an edge, but it's just
Totally.
how you find, that was one of the hardest things when I moved to California. It was like, stop chit-chatting in line, like it was just like, like,
Listen, yeah.
point, let's go, come on. And
You know, people, my team used to be like, you walk too fast. And so, you know, they say sort of as you move across the country, you sort of walk faster. So I'm definitely of that, but very balanced in that. Um, you know, I love the outdoors. I'm a huge skier. I ride dirt bikes. I mountain bike. You
really,
know, so I feel very fortunate in growing up in Northern California. Yeah.
that's cool. So riding dirt bikes, do you do the like, my experience is just what I've seen on TV. And sometimes
Yeah.
it's just kind of the whatever, but then there's some where they're jumping and doing like, which are you?
That's motocross, which I don't do. I don't do the big jumps. I'm an old lady for that. But we do a lot of single track where we ride out in the desert and go explore and go through the forest and stuff like that. It's really amazing.
All right, very cool. Well, also, I mean, I will wait at the bottom for you. No, that's not that would
Yes.
be in my bucket list, but I think that's very cool to do, especially.
Well, thank you. And it's sort of one of my things, which is I try every year to do something that scares me or makes me uncomfortable, whether it's, you know, bungee jumping or whatever it might be. I mean, there's lots of little things in life that scare you. And I just think again, sort of that uncomfortableness is where incredible growth for you as an individual occurs. And so I'm a big believer, whatever it might be, you know, and it doesn't need to be something crazy like dirt biking. You know, luckily my brothers all do it, so I sort of got into that. But there's all kinds of things in life that intimidate us, and so you got to sort of just hit them, you know, directly instead of making them bigger than they really need to be.
Okay, so what's the most recent thing you did that you were afraid of that
I
you
knew
had?
you were going to ask me that, and I was like, what is the most recent thing? I mean, I would actually say it has been some of the trails that I've started doing dirt biking, which were very rocky and hilly and single track. And I was with people much better than me. And I certainly had some moments where I had to kind of dig deep and get focused and just keep moving. And you know, the thing about fear is that it sort of paralyzes you and keeps you from sort of, you know, you want to sort of stay in this state of fear. And so that's what you have to sort of do, you know, the internal work on, just like, okay, I feel this, I observe it, but I'm not going to let it take me over. And I think that's applicable to things, you know, outside of dirt biking and your career, whatever it might be.
Right.
Even, you know, for me throughout my career, speaking on a stage with, you know, hundreds of people staring up at you is very intimidating, and I always get a little bit of a rush before, and I
Yeah.
remind myself, I'm like, okay, you know, it's okay to be intimidated, it's okay to have all these feelings, but just move through it and do what you got to do.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I'm afraid of heights. So
Yeah.
I literally went to do this is when I was in California. They rock climbing walls, and
Oh
I
yeah.
went in, and so I didn't have any with me. And the guys like asked me about, I'm like, well, I'm afraid of heights, and I don't have any upper body strength. And he's like, why are you here? I'm like, because I'm afraid of heights, and I don't.
Yep.
And so like he like was my spotter at the thing, and I knew the name, but I can't think of it. But anyway, so I'm climbing. I'm supposed to like get to the top and ring a bell, and I'm like, couldn't get past this one. He's like, you can do at least. I'm no, really, I can't. But then finally, the last time I went up, I did, and I rang the bell. I got down literally.
Good.
He was like high five me, and it was like he couldn't even hit my hand because I was shaking so much. But when I left, I felt the most exhilarated, and you just ready to do anything.
Yeah.
It does it gives you that energy that excites you, and whether like I'm still afraid of heights, but it's at least it makes you feel like you can kind of conquer something. And so I
Oh, I love hearing that, and I totally agree. And yeah, you know, it's you have that feeling and you're intimidated by it, but just conquering anything, whatever it might be, you know, we tend to, I mean, that's the thing, sort of as you learn about sort of the different ways that men and women operate, one thing that we do is we tend to overthink things. We tend to make it bigger in our heads than we need to. And that took me, you know, many years and many years of therapy and leadership training to really understand, to start to sort of parse that out and understand what was driving that and why you were feeling that way. Or, and then being able to not necessarily, you don't need to act just because you feel something doesn't mean you need to act on that
right,
either.
right.
You know,
Yeah.
you could ignore that feeling,
Yeah.
or some feelings you need to acknowledge, like, you know, it's a constant sort of conversation with yourself.
Yeah, and it keeps going. Well, I going back to your LinkedIn post,
Yeah.
which you posted one, and I actually cut and pasted this because I thought it was so cool. It was from Rashad. I hope I'm saying
Oh,
his Tabakawala. Am I saying
yeah.
it correctly?
Yeah.
And he had a post on fears, speaking
Yes.
of. And so what he wrote, just I'm reading part of it. Well, first of all, what you wrote about it is, as always, Rashad nails it. So you were
Yes.
in complete agreement. And what he wrote is, there is one emotion that is increasingly widespread across the world. It is that of fear. It is particularly acute in the world of business. And I do see that. You
Yeah.
constantly are coming across that. And so he basically said it comes across as a few different factors. I picked out a couple of them that I want to sort of, I always turn it around a little bit. I tweak the things, but for
Great.
the,
Yeah. I love it.
so one of his questions was, are we still relevant as leaders? So in other words, most leaders today are having this question, especially with AI and everything that's going on. So I want to ask you, how do you stay relevant as a leader?
Yeah. It's a great question. Well, again, I think we've already touched on some of those themes, right? One is, especially in the world that we are in today, the reason why there's so much fear is because whenever you have great societal change occurring on many different levels, most people are not comfortable in uncertain environments that are not sort of really clear in black and white. And we are definitely in a very murky one right now. And two, sort of to get through that, you have to maintain a sense of intellectual curiosity where you are willing to question, you are willing to learn, you are willing to talk to people that might be different from you or people who do things differently. All of that's super important because I think as a leader, it is much more, especially going forward, you have to be a generalist. You have to sort of understand a lot of different things now. You have to be able to synthesize a lot of different things. And
Yeah.
I think at the same time, what has never been more important and will, in my view, become even increasingly important is the notion of vulnerability and humanity. Is that as a leader, you really need to spend the time creating that emotional safety on a team so that they can go and do the best that they can. And that seems really easy, but it's not when we're in a very fear-based environment that's kind of hitting people from multiple levels. You know, people are scared to say and act and talk about the things that matter to them and all of that stuff. So I do think like the key thing as a leader going forward is creating that, you know, psychological safety for your team, giving them the tools to be successful, understanding sort of where they are emotionally within this change and how it might be impacting them. And then
Yeah.
just sort of pushing them to do the best that they can by maintaining intellectual curiosity and pushing for, you know, being the best that you can be.
Yeah. Well, and I think what's key, what you said, is that emotional space in the sense that I think when it's seen as weakness sometimes, someone comes in,
Oh yeah.
they're upset about something or they don't get something or whatever it may be. It doesn't mean that that defines them, and that maybe it just means walking through, as you had your mentors, maybe it's walking them through it. And then when they leave that safe space, they shouldn't be judged by that, and letting them know that they have that, I would think means the world to your team.
100%. The thing is that innovation does not occur in an environment where people are scared to make mistakes. You will not get innovation. You will not get the level of creativity and excellence that you pursue. And so that's part of what Rashad speaks to, which is companies are so fearful from a marketing perspective, you know, they don't want to take that risk anymore and understood. But when you don't take any risk in terms of how you do things, then you're not going to really sort of hit those levels of innovation. And so
Yeah.
that's part of like what you have to create on your team is a safety net so that if a mistake is made, it isn't perceived as failure. It's a learning opportunity for everyone to refine and understand how you can understand and then go and do it differently or better or whatever might need to happen.
Right. Totally agree. Okay, so one of the other things, we'll just stick with one more question
Oh, sure.
that he wrote. Can we say anything that does not get us into trouble? And obviously, today everything gets you into trouble. I'm always like, Can I say that?"
Yeah.
I don't want to ask you that. We're not
Yeah.
going to do
Thank
that.
you.
I want to ask you, what's the most recent thing that you said that got you into trouble? And I just mean with your family, with a friend, like just something you maybe blurted out. Uh,
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm in trouble all the time. I'm a very direct woman. So, like, you know,
yeah,
um, but, you know, I'm direct, but I also, I never intend to say anything that would hurt somebody's feelings. And I think, you know, I think there's lots of examples of that. Sometimes I tell, you know, my bosses what they might not want to hear, but
Mhm.
they acknowledge that I'm offering a different perspective based on expertise and experience. And so it's, you know, so I don't think I can necessarily point to one exact thing because I mean, my family's always like, I can't believe you said that. I will bring up politics in a situation that probably isn't the best place to bring up politics. But yeah, I do. It's a pretty often thing, to be honest with you.
So it's just always, is it one of those, oh, another thing for Kirsten?
Yes, yes, with my family for sure.
Yeah.
With my family for sure. But I mean, I will. You know, I have a strong sense of defending those or people or even animals or anything that is not in a great place. So it's like I'm always looking out and just trying to make sure that we all are treating each other with kindness and empathy. And unfortunately, we are in a world right now where you're not seeing our best foot forward in that area. You know, there's a lot of behavior that is pretty disappointing to me. And I do feel that as an older woman now, I should speak up because you know, I don't mind the career risk anymore. I need to try and help protect and sort of as younger women or younger men are coming up through this, like we need to sort of protect them and speak out about some of these things that need to be spoken out about.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And I do agree that that's something that more people should be more courageous about, like just a more, it's not even, I mean, there's courage behind it, but not necessarily just being, it's okay to say something and everyone else is not agreeing. If it's something
Yeah.
that truly you believe in. And depend, because I have all different groups of friends who have all different kinds of beliefs. I don't,
Absolutely.
everything I say does not necessarily resonate well with certain groups and whatnot.
Yep.
But it's like you should be able to say it. What I don't like is when you get just shut down or
Totally.
like, let's have a conversation. You know,
Well, dialogue is actually one of the most important components of a democratic society. And the ability to have groups of people that see things differently and have different perspectives is, again, another sort of environment that creates innovation and creativity. And so that's the bummer to me. And I've certainly been in those environments where if you did speak up, it was sort of frowned upon. And again, not directly, but in a more sort of insidious way. And my belief is leaders should surround themselves with people who see and think differently and disagree. It's super important. But that right now is not necessarily the case. And I get it. I get it.
no, I completely agree. All right, well, I have time for one last question.
Okay.
If you could hit rewind on and relive just one day in your career, or we can expand it to in your life,
Yeah.
what would that be?
Wow. That's a big question. I have been incredibly fortunate in many ways. I will have to say, and we started with this, but getting to be on stage at Cannes Lion was a pretty incredible moment. So, in terms from a marketing career perspective, absolute bucket list moment. I love traveling and have traveled all around the world with a group of friends that we've been doing it for 20 years. And so, definitely some of my travels of being in like Ibiza and places like that, skiing in Italy, if I could do that and do those days again, that would be amazing too.
That would be awesome. Well, you know what? I said it was the last question, but I realized I need to say this one on
Okay.
your site, on Breakwater site. And I
Yeah.
love the way it's so, and this proves I do my research. So I read about you and I'm thinking it's done. I'm like, what's this little square? And you're like, it says, fun fact, teeny. And I
Yes.
click
Yeah.
on it and I find that you are you got your pilot's license when you were
Yes.
in college, which given our conversation doesn't really surprise me, but I just have to ask, what, how did that come about?
I was such a huge fan of Amelia Earhart growing up. And I read books. I read like, that's all I did when I was a little kid. I loved reading. And I was so inspired by Amelia Earhart, Burl Markham, some of these early women pilots that you want to talk about going against the odds and people telling them they were crazy and like literally every single barrier and obstacle to them becoming pilots. It just sort of, I don't know, it was a random thing that got in me. And then when I was in college, I stumbled upon it and I started working at the airport. And then I became a part of this women's international women's pilots club. That was like one of the most inspirational things. And then I just, yeah, I got my private pilot license and it was an incredible achievement. I mean, it was very hard, right? It takes many hours of practice, many hours of studying, but I met so many cool women in that. It was just the most inspiring thing ever. So yeah, that's how it happened.
You still fly? Do you have to like, do you have to renew your license all the time or?
That's actually on my list. These past couple of years, I've let it go. My partner, he's a pilot as well. And so I intend to get back to that. It's something you have to have time. And that just hasn't been something I've had a lot of lately.
Yeah, I think you'd want to keep on top of all the latest stuff if you're going to keep
Exactly.
flying up in the air.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Well, I'm glad you're doing that, Kirsten.
Thank
Well,
you.
it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time and talking with me today.
Oh, loved it. It was great talking to you. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad. And thank you for watching. And as I always say, if you know another fabulous woman like Kirsten and you want me to pull back the curtain on her, just let me know and I will do my best. So thanks for watching and thanks again, Kirsten.
Yeah. Goodbye.